An important part of preparing for any part of the IELTS exam is to learn a lot of different English words, having a broad English vocabulary. Today's lesson will be very useful, not just for the speaking portion of the IELTS exam, but for all portions of the test. Today's lesson will be on words to use instead of very. We will be looking at words to use instead of very in a positive situation. In the speaking section of the exam, you'll be asked questions related to you, and as part of the written exam, you will be expected to write a descriptive report or a written argument. In both situations, you'll be fine to write responses such as, "I think it is a very good idea," or "This is very bad because." But to really show how well you know the English language, make a Band 5 go all the way up to a Band 9. Having a wide range of vocabulary is necessary. In today's lesson, we'll take a look at some examples in shows or movies where words were used instead of very to replace positive words, and then I'll also give you some examples for you to try and use in your day-to-day life as practice. In today's lesson, we'll take a look at some examples in TV shows or movies where words were used instead of very in a positive situation. I'll also give you some examples of words to use instead of very in your everyday situations to practice. Our first example today is from Toy Story, where Woody is talking to Buzz.
Sheriff, this is no time to panic. This is the perfect time to panic!
So, the sentence that Woody says here is, "It's the perfect time to panic." Now, in this situation, he could have said something like, "It's a very good time to panic," or "It's the very best time to panic." But to show the urgency, they've used the words perfect. And so the sentence becomes, "It's the perfect time to panic." Now, let's look at the opposite. This is from Alice in Wonderland, and the main character, Alice, uses the word very. And after we watch the clip, let's look at some examples of what Alice could have said instead of the word she uses, very.
But that's just...
Example, Alice says, "But that's just the trouble with me. I give myself very good advice, but I very seldom follow it." So for this example, instead of saying very good advice, Alice could have said, "I give myself excellent advice," or "I give myself amazing advice." But for this example, for the movie, the reason Alice says very good advice is because this is actually the start of a song. And also she says very seldom. Now, very seldom is an old style of saying the phrase. Instead of saying very seldom, what else could she have said? She could have said something like, "I seldomly follow it," or "I hardly follow it," or even something like, "I rarely follow it." All of these are good examples and new words to use instead of just saying very seldom. Now that we've taken a look at some movie examples, let's take a look at some more words that we can add to our vocabulary. For this list, I've included words that you will either see or hear in your IELTS exam, and also these words can be used for your written section as well. So, if we go through the table, instead of using very good, for example, in a sentence like, "Are you feeling very good?" you can instead replace very good and say, "Are you feeling great?" or "Are you feeling well?" or "Are you feeling amazing?" I'll go through the rest with more examples to show you how the words can be replaced. So, instead of saying, "I'm very happy today," you could say, "I'm cheerful today," or "I'm filled with joy today," or "I'm feeling delighted." Next, instead of saying, "He's very smart," you could say, "He is intelligent," or "He's clever," or "He's bright." Next up, instead of saying, "That joke is very funny," you could instead say, that joke is hilarious, or that joke is amusing, or finally, that joke is humorous. Next is, instead of saying, I'm very thankful for this award, you could instead say, I'm grateful for the award, or I'm pleased to receive this award, or finally, I'm relieved that I received this award. Next, instead of saying, that's a very pretty car, you could instead say, that's an attractive car, or that's a charming car. And finally, you could also say, that's a good looking car. And last of all, instead of saying they had a very nice dinner, you could instead say they had a pleasant dinner, or they had an enjoyable dinner. And finally, you could also say they had a delightful dinner. These are a few examples of words you can use instead of just adding very to words that you already know. Try using these words in your everyday life and comment below with some examples that you've used, and I'll also provide a comment of an example that I've used recently. I hope you enjoyed today's lesson. And I hope to see you again next time.